Welcome to Ask Jessi Kneeland. Today's question is from someone going by AM. She writes, I like my arms and legs, but I have a soft belly and I hate it. It's not like I'm fat, there's just this little roll around my belly button, but it's so gross. I desperately want a six-pack or at least flat-toned abs, even though I honestly don't know how much or why it matters so much to me. I just see other people with them, and I hate the way my belly looks so much. Help. So I want to start by saying, number one, that belly fat is normal. I'm sure that you've probably heard this before, but I really want to drive this point home before continuing on with anything. Belly fat is normal and healthy. So as women, there's a lot of really important stuff under there, and we were designed to have belly fat to protect it. In some ways, it's really just padding. Some belly fat is normal, and genetics will determine how much for each person feels, like where your set point is. The other thing is genetics determine where in your body you're going to store fat and how much and how easily and all that stuff. But combined with your leanness, how much body fat percentage you are at any time, you might or might not have some belly fat that's visible or pinchable or grabbable. However, most women have to be really, really, really lean in order to ever not have that grabbable belly fat roll. Like I said, that's because belly fat is totally normal and healthy and natural and okay. So if you're thinking about trying to get to a place of totally no belly fat, like really flat, really lean, seeing all the definition in your abs, most likely, I don't know your body, but most likely you're going to have to be lean as hell everywhere. It might even look scary lean on other parts of your body. I've had women tell me that, like, in order to see my abs, I have to be like really, really lean elsewhere, and it's just not worth it for them. So it might not be worth it for you to work as hard as you'd need to work in order to get as lean as you'd need to be to finally see some definition in your abs, or to have what you call those hard flat abs, or a six-pack. So it might not be in the cards at all. It might be impossible, and if it is possible for you, it might be really, really heavy cost. You might have to work really hard in a way that isn't worth it for you. However, the other thing is, if you're comparing your abs or your belly to the sort of unrealistic standard that we see on social media and in fitness brands and fitness models, then you're comparing yourself against somebody whose abs are flexed or sucked in, because that's always how they do it. Nobody ever did a photo shoot for fitness and told the model, like, just let your belly hang out and relax and, take a deep breath and enjoy. No. Everybody's like, suck it in, like, flex hard. I know, because I've done it. And it looks really nice in the photos. You see all the lines and the definition, and it's flat and hard. However, that's not what that model necessarily looks like all day. Most likely, the moment she let go of that pose, she took a deep breath and she let her belly expand, and then it was soft, and maybe all that definition disappeared, and it was just like a little bit of a rounded, curve. So all of that is normal and okay, and I want you, before we talk about anything else, to really just make sure you're recognizing that you might be comparing against something that's either genetically impossible for you, totally not worth the cost or the risk associated with how lean you'd have to get in order to have what you want, or just comparing against people who are not actually as hard-bellied as you would imagine. You're just comparing against photos or videos where people are flexing, sucking it in, and maybe in a state of dehydration, the way that, like, competitors for fitness competitions are. They're usually super dehydrated. They haven't eaten all day, and some of them are doing other measures as well to make sure that their abs are as dry and as hard and as flat as possible. So just be aware of what you're comparing against, because soft bellies are normal. Everybody has one. When you inhale, you have less definition. Your belly fills up and it's a little bit round. When you exhale, you can flex and it looks a little bit flatter. And outside of that, for a woman, belly fat is normal. It just is. We always have this idea that it's not, but it really, really is normal and healthy even. So that's my first thing. The second thing I want to say is you probably know all that already. If you're writing me this question, then you're probably somewhere in the world of self-development and recognizing where body image issues are holding you back and what's going on with you. So the next thing I want to say is that if you know that already and it just doesn't help, it just doesn't change anything, you're like, cool, yeah, no, I know I'm comparing unnecessarily, but I can't seem to stop. Then the next thing I would say is diving inward, diving into the inner work of what's going on with you. You can start with the idea that we can build muscle throughout our bodies. Like, you can get big muscles in your back, your arms, your chest, your glutes, your legs, but you can't really build up that much muscle in this area comparatively. It's not as, oh, I guess you can build up the muscle, but it's not as strongly protected in that front belly part of your body as it is everywhere else, for the exact reason that you have to inhale and exhale, and that it's always softening and tightening, softening and tightening. Your diaphragm is right there. It's all mixed up with your sexual organs. It's a lot of very vulnerable stuff underneath the front part of the body like that, and it's pretty exposed. And that I would start examining for yourself, because I find this very true with a lot of my clients, that when there's a really strong urge to have hard abs, or if you just really hate what your belly looks like, that a lot of times there is a very strong desire for more armor, for more protection from the world, that you feel too vulnerable, you feel too exposed, you feel threatened maybe, or that you've had trauma in the past that makes you feel any of these ways that make having a vulnerable, exposed, soft underbelly showing unbearable. So if you've done all the external work and you're like, got it, and you want to start digging internally, I would start looking at possible trauma in your past, possible sexual trauma, which has a really high relationship to that part of your body, and also just examining what you really want from hard abs. What would they offer you? What kind of protection might that offer you, and from what? And how okay are you with being vulnerable, with being exposed, with being soft in the world, with being unprotected? How safe do you feel is kind of what it all comes down to. Because my guess is that you don't feel that safe. If this is an ongoing issue for you, my guess is you feel unsafe. Maybe that means you feel anxious all the time and you're wondering, you're hyper-monitoring your body, you're checking everything, how you're doing. Or maybe it means you feel literally unsafe in a situation in your life that feels physically dangerous to you. Either way, I've just noticed that there's a huge correlation between really struggling to love that part of your body and a feeling of unbearable vulnerability. And just be aware that in terms of healing this, you're going to want to get to a place. The answer is not just build more armor. If you feel unsafe, the answer is not build more armor. The answer is figure out what's making you feel unsafe. Either change the situation, if it's something that you can change that's literally unsafe for you, or learn how to heal and let go of the belief that you have to constantly be on guard when in fact you're safe. And that happens a lot with trauma. That's what a lot of past trauma will carry over into a feeling that we are still unsafe even when we're technically safe. We never message to ourselves that we're safe now. So that's usually where that comes from. But learning to allow your belly to be soft requires a lot of trust. Literal trust that you'll be okay, safe, and that people will accept you, that you're not going to get kicked out of the tribe and left for dead. I mean, there's a really very real wiring in the female brain that says that if people don't like us, we could die. So be aware that that's the direction you want to be going. The direction is not get a six-pack, and the direction is not, oh, work harder to build better armor if I feel vulnerable. The healing has to come from examining why you feel like you need more armor. Why do you feel such a need for rigidness? What boundaries got crossed at what point that told you, that messaged to you in such a big way that you need to fight to stay safe, that you need hard boundaries around you all the time? Because that's usually what's going on. And if none of this resonates with you, that is completely fine. You might literally be like, Jessi, cool, but like my belly's just ugly and that's just all there is to it. There's no inner work to do. In which case, great. Go back to the first thing. Belly fat is normal. Softness is totally fine and normal. Deal with that first. And if this doesn't resonate, maybe there's something else going on for you. Maybe it's just an issue of your size in general. All kinds of body image issues can come up. It can be really complex, and it's one of those body parts that we get a lot of coverage in the media for having like super tight, really sexy abs is like on every magazine cover ever. So maybe that's it. But if you're looking to do the inner work, my guess is that there is a reason you feel unsafe, that there's a reason you feel unbearably vulnerable, and that your underbelly, which is literally your belly area, is what's coming up as an area of a place that you need to protect yourself. So do that digging, figure out what's going on for you, see if you can heal, and healing will not be like wham bam. It's probably going to be a slow, very painful, maybe tedious process of working to relax a little more, relax a little more, relax a little more, learning to feel safe again in your body, learning to reconnect with what it feels like to be inside your body instead of watching yourself have a body from the outside. And particularly when it comes to the belly, if you have any issues with like food, if you have a troubled relationship with food, that might come up because that's where we house all of our digestion stuff, as well as reproductive. If you have reproductive issues, that might come up as well because it's all in that same area. So anything could be going on from an internal perspective to relate to this, and instead of you dealing with those things directly, like, wow, I have a really, tricky relationship with my reproductive system, and I had this thing happen where then I started to question if it was okay for me to, want this kind of sexual relationship, whatever it is. If that's tied up in there, instead of dealing with that, your brain's like, that seems complex and hard and scary and dangerous and painful. So it stops you from that, and instead it focuses on the outside, and it tells you belly fat bad, belly fat bad, belly fat bad. So if that's where you're feeling stuck, I would move inward as much as you can. Take it away from the belly fat. Like, we all have belly fat. Look, we've all got grabbable fat. It's totally fine. Any amount is fine, really. So it's not about that, and I encourage you not to let it be about that. Don't let that be where you stop digging. Like, belly fat's bad, and I hate mine, so I guess that's what there is. Really dig, go inwards and see why, see what's going on for you. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll get back to you. And as always, you can submit your questions for my Ask Jessi Kneeland video series at jessikneeland.com/contact/.